Hello, and welcome to EmpowerID 101. My name is Phil Geringer, one of the solution architects here at EmpowerID. I've created this series of short training videos to provide you with an administrator's understanding of EmpowerID. I have included videos that cover most aspects of EmpowerID, from basic concepts to complex configurations and everything in between. Each video has been designed to cover a specific topic or process, so feel free to come back often and refresh your understanding of a particular area you're interested in. For this video, we're going to walk through the thought processes of designing a role and location structure for a typical services company. So let's take a look at this particular company and see what type of scenario we have. So the overview for this company is a typical services-based company with corporate headquarters and a number of remote branches across the U.S. Their Active Directory is very straightforward, with OUs for each of the branches, and then an OU structure for their headquarters that's broken down by division. The company is structured in such a way that the corporate headquarters handles all of the administrative processes, and the branches are self-contained remote sites with their own local IT manager. Each branch is then assigned to a specific region that is controlled by a regional manager responsible for supervising operations within their assigned branches. So as we start thinking about the design for our role and location structure, what we'll want to do is think back to the design decisions that need to be made. And we talked about this in the previous video on designing a role and location structure. So we're just going to go through each of those questions that we need to ask ourselves and what types of decisions we can make from those questions and answers. So the first one we have is, will the system be used by a non-technical business-oriented employee or only by centralized IT staff? Then we want to look at what the nature of the architecture of the back-end resource systems are that we need to automatically provision to or provide access to. We need to take a look at the entitlements, such as accounts, mailboxes, and home folders that we'll need to automatically provision. And then also take a look at some other access assignments, such as group memberships, web page assignments, those types of things that we need to automatically assign and provision. So let's take the first one. Do we have non-technical or technical users that will be using the system? So in discovery with the client, what we found out is the customer wants to be able to delegate certain management processes to the branch managers and regional managers, as well as the department managers within the corporate environment. So we know that we're going to be dealing with non-technical people that are going to be needing to use the system. So some of the things we need to know here is that we're going to need to have a business-oriented structure that the non-technical managers can understand and easily navigate. We need to be able to delegate at a regional level. We need to be able to also delegate at a branch level. We need to be able to delegate at the department level in the corporate environment. So from this statement, basically what we know is that we're going to need to have delegation inheritance points at the corporate, department, branch, and regional locations as we start thinking about our particular design. Now the next thing we need to ask ourselves is, what is the architecture of the target back-end resource systems that we're going to need to automatically provision to? So the Active Directory for this particular company is noted here. It's got OUs. It's a relatively flat structure with OUs for the different branches and then OUs for the various divisions. And it's flattened out. We don't have specific OUs for departments and such like that. It's structured based on that departmental organization geography. And they also have an HR system that we want to bring in a feed from that has distinct departmental location assignments for each employee, as well as discrete job titles. So what we know from this information is that we should be able to map pretty directly from the location structure to an Active Directory structure and HR structure. And the reason I say that is because the assignment points that they talked about previously with the business users needing to be able to delegate map in pretty well to the branch structure and the corporate departmental structure. And we'll see how we're going to map those in here in a little bit. Now the next thing we need to take a look at are what entitlements will we need to automatically provision. So from what we saw, we're going to need to provision Active Directory accounts into OUs. Those OUs logically mirror the departmental and branch structure, which is good from a business standpoint. We're going to need to provision exchange mailboxes. Now, something that we would have found out on the mailboxes is that they'll be distributed across servers based on whether it's a branch employee or a corporate employee mailbox. So that's going to inform us on where we're going to want to have some of those inheritance structures at. And then home folders will need to be provisioned on servers that are local to the branch offices and the corporate offices. All right. So in conclusion, we'll know that resource entitlement provisioning should fit pretty well into a departmental and branch-based location structure. So we're starting to kind of get a picture going here as to what's important to the customer and what's important from a provisioning standpoint. So as we think about those, that's going to be important to understand, because that's going to kind of tell us how we want to design things. Now, other assignments that we'll need to make are our group memberships. They want to be able to assign group memberships easily and automatically based on whatever RBAC structure we have. Now, what we found out was most group memberships are based on geographic locations and departmental affiliations. So I'm in certain groups because I'm in a particular branch. I'm in certain groups because I'm in a particular region or a particular department or division within corporate, those types of things. And then we also have some group memberships that control access to SharePoint sites and pages. And these are also based primarily on department structures, but also on whether you're a manager or a non-manager. So here's the first time that we've heard roles come into play. So most of the stuff that they've told us so far maps pretty much to a departmental structure. But now we have managers and non-managers we're going to need to be aware of. And then they also have some group memberships that control access to various applications. Some of these applications are based on the department, but most are based on specifically assigned responsibilities within a department. Now, historically, we know that these groups are requested by a manager for their employees based on what we talked with the customer about. So that's some of the things that we'll need to keep in mind as we look at designing our structure here. So we'll know that group memberships need to tie to department and geography as well as manager and non-manager roles. So let's take a look at some of the general considerations that we have. So it looks like most assignments are based on organizational structure of some kind. Job roles don't necessarily play a large role in this particular company's delegation and assignment structure. So hopefully we should be able to roll up most of the job roles into simple manager, non-manager roles, and maybe a few delegation-based roles, like for IT management of like branches and regions and things like that. Now, we also know that the structure of the Active Directory we'll be provisioning users to is relatively flat, but their group assignment structure internally, from a business standpoint, goes down much more granular to the department level. So when we create our internal structure from EmpowerID, we'll go ahead and we'll create sub-departments under those divisions, and then we'll simply do a mapping of a many-to-one relationship tying back to the AD structure and our OUs there. Since most of the assignments and provisioning logic is based on the organizational structure, we should be able to effectively take advantage of some role and location inheritance for anchoring most of our assignments. And then we'll also want to identify those assignments that are more specialized and request-based in nature, so you can wrap some management roles or request delegations around those. So that's some of the things that we will keep in mind as we look at our structure here. So let's go ahead and go over to our server and take a look at how we might build out a role and location structure based on the information that we know here. So over here in our server, I'm in the management console, and I have our role and location manager up here. And I have it up here because it's simply kind of an easier way to see both the role and location kind of together on the same screen. So what I have here is I have our root node or a parent node for our company 1 configuration on the location tree. And I've created a company 1 roles on the role tree. Now, as we'll see in later videos, we're going to have additional scenarios that we'll look at for companies 2 and 3 and an education department. So I've got all of this configuration here, this one system. So to start with, with company one, we know that they need to treat branches differently than they need to treat corporate. Okay, because some of the things that they told us and that we saw in our previous slides were that they need to delegate things differently to branches than they do to corporate. Some of our mailbox is going to be based on if you're in a branch or not, or if you're in corporate. You know, our locations are going to be not our locations, but our home folder is going to be based on whether I'm in a particular branch or I'm in the corporate environment. So we're going to start by separating out our hierarchy into corporate level and a branches level. And that'll give us an assignment point or an anchor point for doing delegations later on. Now, what they told us is within the corporate environment, they've got a lot of departments and divisions that they need to be able to assign to. And if we remember the Active Directory structure, let's bring it up here real quick. Here's our Active Directory structure for company one. And we'll see that their corporate location, their corporate OUs, are simply the divisions. Okay, but they've got a lot of other departments under these different divisions, but in their particular environment, they flattened it out and they just put all of the users from one division into a particular OU. So for purposes of being able to elegantly map from and delegate from our locations into the OUs, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up our root or our parent node divisions in EmpowerID, which mirror what we have in our OU structure. And in discussions with the customer and in seeing how their OUs are structured, we know that these divisional breakdowns are the important breakdowns that they have in their organizational chart. All right. So then underneath each of these divisions, we can then break out into the various departments underneath there. So finance may have the accounts payable, receivables, and payroll. And then information technology may have a few. Sales may have inside and outside sales, customer support, and then operations may have some other departments. So we can break these departments out underneath our divisions, and we can assign people to these departments even though they don't have an OU in their Active Directory structure, because they were telling us that they want to be able to assign department managers, delegated rights to their departments. They want to be able to assign group memberships and things like that to the individual departments. So in this particular scenario, these departments are an important anchor point where they want to do some specific delegations and access assignments. So we're going to depict those in our location hierarchy here. Now, when it comes to the branches, I'm going to go ahead and fold this back up. When it comes to the branches, one of the things that they told us is each of their branches is assigned to a particular region, and they do some assignments and some delegations and some access based on people that have delegated rights to a particular region, which would be a certain number of branches. So even though their Active Directory just has all of their branches in a flat set here, because in their Active Directory they don't have any group policies or anything like that that associates regions. So they just don't do anything in Active Directory based on that. But from a business standpoint, the regions are important. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll create these upper level parent nodes for regions. So we have an East region, a Midwest region, and a West region. That will give us an anchor point for being able to do delegations and other assignments based on the region. And then we go ahead and we further break down our regions, and we have our locations, or our branch locations here. Now the branches are the lowest level that they really care about when they're doing assignments and the provisioning into their branches, because a branch may have 30 or 40 different people in it, and so there's not a real granular breakdown underneath those. So we can just keep it at the branch level here. But what we've done is we've created these assignment anchor points to be able to delegate at these higher level locations, which then will go down into our branches or inherit down into the branches. All right. So this should give us a good basic structure for tying back into our Active Directory. And if we take a look at our mapper, a role and location mapper, where we actually do that tying of the internal locations to our Active Directory, now we'll actually get into a more detailed discussion of the role and location RBAC mapper in another video, just to demonstrate what we can do with it here. If we look at the mappings that I've created here, we can see that we have a one-to-one mapping of our branches into their branch locations, so that if we create a person in this particular location, we can use this mapping to determine where to place the Active Directory OU, or the Active Directory account into which OU. And then if we notice down here in our corporate, we have just the individual divisions in our Active Directory, but we can assign, and we can map our granular department levels into the same division, so that if we place a person in the accounts receivable department, the mapping that it will follow will create an account in the finance division OU. And so this is how we can leverage those mappings, and we can get granular on the EmpowerID location side and still map back into a flattened out structure on the OU side over here. So this is how we're going to set up our location structure so that we can map into our Active Directory structure. And here again, this is a relatively simple example. In subsequent videos, I'll have some more, a little bit more detailed or complicated examples that we'll get to see. But just to start out with, we'll just look at this one where we have it here. So that will do it for our locations. So we have what we think is going to be a pretty good location structure, which maps well into the business processes that they need, as far as their delegation points and how they want to manage their employees. And then it also can map into the Active Directory in a relatively straightforward manner. So in this case, this will give us a really good structure that we can then use to start delegating some of our assignments and provisioning rules and such. So that's the location structure. Now, if you remember, when we were talking about the delegations and the roles that they had, they said that what was really important to them was more the department that someone was in, because most of the assignments flow from the department that they're in, but that they do have a designation as far as managers of departments, managers of branches, managers of regional type locations. So over here in our roles, when we go to create our role structure, basically we're going to have a general staff. Okay, that's just your normal employee, because most of the assignments are going to be, I'm a general staff member, I'm an employee of a particular department. So if I'm an employee in accounts payable, I'm going to get certain access, certain things assigned to me. But it's mainly based on the fact that I'm in accounts payable. But now if I'm a manager in accounts payable, say I'm a department manager in accounts payable, then I should have additional access and additional rights, say on the shared file system, or additional rights to certain groups that I should be able to assign to people in my department, those types of things. So because we need to be able to assign some additional access based on the fact that I have the role of manager, then we need a department manager assignment over here on our role so we can make that assignment. Now, also we have the idea of branch managers. Now, branch managers will have the ability to do certain things with their specific branches. But then if I'm a regional manager, I'm going to have additional access. So in creating our role structure, what I've done here is I've created an inheritance structure even within the role structure, to say that if I'm a branch manager in one of these branches, I can do certain things and I'll be able to have certain assignments. But then if I'm a regional manager, I will get any of the assignments that a branch manager has, for access to their people. And then I will also get I can also provide additional assignments because I'm a regional manager in a particular region. Okay, so it's just a way that we can leverage some of that inheritance, even at the role side, to do that. Now, the reason we have an overall hierarchical node of manager here is so that we can delegate, or we can assign maybe group memberships or access to certain documents in our SharePoint site or certain applications, because I'm a manager at any level in the organization. So I've created a grouping for management staff that I can make an assignment at the manager level, and it will inherit to anybody who is any of these types of managers down underneath there. So I don't have to, if I have certain things that a branch manager or a regional manager or department manager all need to get, maybe in a particular distribution list for all managers in the organization, I can assign that an upper level node of the manager instead of having to assign it at all of these individual nodes. That's just a way that we can leverage our inheritance. And then we've gone ahead and we've created a help desk tech role, because we're going to need to have some additional assignments for just our IT staff that need to be able to do things. So we can potentially build this out into additional, help desk tech, customer support techs, workstation techs, IT administrators, those types of things. But just for purposes of illustration, I just created the one help desk tech. All right. So that's how we've designed this particular role and location structure to handle this specific scenario of a services-based company. Alrighty, so let's go back here. Now, to summarize, there's no substitute for good requirements gathering and really getting to know the business needs of the organization when it comes to designing an effective role and location structure. You really need to get to know the business processes of an organization so that you can know what is important to the organization. Because if it has no importance from an assignment or a provisioning perspective, then there isn't really any need to create that particular, breakdown in a role and location structure. So the whole purpose here is to make sure that we can have an effective management tool for that particular company. So we're going to build out the role and location structure to the needs of the business, not just the needs of the technical systems. So look for areas to aggregate and inherit where it makes sense. And when we talk about aggregate and inherit, that would go back to the regional locations that we set up, that we put our branches in. There's no reason from a technical mapping standpoint to have those in there, but from a business processing standpoint, those hierarchical nodes are important for some of the assignments that we're going to need to do. Remember that not every assignment can be tied to a business role and location structure. So build out the roles and locations where they make sense, and then wrap other processes around the assignment of the assignments that don't easily fit into the business role and location structure. And then finally, remember, every company is different. There's no hard and fast, right and wrong way to design your infrastructure. There's just simple and complex. The EmpowerID is very configurable and can be used to manage just about any infrastructure out there. But the trick is to figure out the most efficient configuration that gives you the most effective management, gives you the most bang for your buck. So you could create a very complex configuration that would do just about everything in the world that you need it to do. But if you configure down to the extreme granular level for certain things that may only take a few minutes to do a couple times a month, you've created an extraordinarily complex configuration without a lot of benefit for that configuration. So just get to know your business and then figure out the best way to leverage the various configuration options that we have. And that'll do it for this particular video. So thanks for watching, and come back later as we look at some other business scenarios for designing our role and location structures.